What are some NSFW history facts that don't get taught in school? In late imperial China, a concubine earmarked for sex by the emperor later at night would be pampered all day. When the night of the deed came, the palace servants stripped the girl naked, wrapped her in a silk blanket, and carried her to the emperor's bed to unwrap her there. This practice wasn't for imperial majesty's kinks. It was a security measure. Sometime earlier, a concubine tried to assassinate an emperor during sex with weapons hidden in her clothing. I'm sorry miss, but for security reasons we need you to put on this snuggie if you wish to bang the emperor. Queen Victoria instituted a system of certifying prostitutes as syphilis free. They were called the Queen's Ladies of the Night. Many prostitutes hung the certificate above their beds as a point of pride. That's honestly a very good idea. Reduce transmission, increase value. The political smear campaign against Marie Antoinette involved a lot of dicks. She was 14 when she married. Her husband was 15. They didn't consummate the marriage until 7 years later. He had a medical condition. Edit. Looks like that may not be true. Historians are kind of split on whether or not he had a medical condition, or whether he was just not interested in sex and therefore had no idea how to go about it. They've even used his meticulously kept riding journals to sort of rule out that he had the condition, phimosis. There was no break in his riding or hunting schedule, and it is thought that riding after the procedure to fix phimosis would have been incredibly painful, if not impossible. Also, the Queen's brother came to visit 6 years into the royal marriage, and during some locker room talk with the King uncovered that King didn't realize he had to ejaculate inside of the Queen. He would enter, remain unmoving and then withdraw. Many times this would result in nighttime emissions in his sleep. Marie Antoinette soon became pregnant after he explained proper sex and conception with the King. It's hilarious to think that it took 6 years of her not getting pregnant for someone to explain sex to the King. Roman brothels had pictures of the prostitutes' specialties above the door to their room. Backquote will hold you while you cry. That's the best kind. The father of microbiology, Antony van Leeuwenhoek, was the first to examine semen under a microscope immediately after ejaculating in his wife. The daddy of microbiology. He actually made a point to emphasize that he got it the sanctioned way because, you know, normal guys don't spank it. Powdered wigs were invented to cover up head sores caused by syphilis. And smallpox scars too. And lice. And all kinds of nasty things, because while population was booming, indoor plumbing and clean water were not things yet. The powder was used to kill lice. It's powdered sugar, sir. The lice hate the sugar. It's delicious, sir. Hey Charles Angel. Helen Palmer, the wife of famed author Dr. Seuss, was an excellent writer in her own right, though she is perhaps best known for her tragic suicide. Seuss had frequent affairs, while Palmer was a faithful spouse and truly loved her husband. Seuss was absent through much of the turbulent part of her life, which was caused by disease including a battle with cancer. Her suicide note included this passage. Dear Ted, what has happened to us? I don't know. I feel myself in a spiral, going down down down, into a black hole from which there is no escape, no brightness. And loud in my ears from every side I hear, failure, failure, failure. I love you so much. I'm too old and enmeshed in everything you do and are, that I cannot conceive of life without you. My going will leave quite a rumor, but you can say I was overworked and overwrought. Your reputation with your friends and fans will not be harmed. Sometimes think of the fun we had all through the years. Seuss would later say that Palmer's suicide made him feel worthless, which he admitted was more than deserved. Nevertheless, he married the very woman he was having an affair with. Archaeologists find lots of poop and lots of dildos. I'm an archaeologist. I was recently excavating a fishing/farming village. As one of the more senior folks on the site, I was given an area that ended up making us scratch our heads. It was a layer about a meter from the surface below one of the building we were excavating, made up of a kinda squishy black substance. No artifacts or anything found in it. Turns out I spent almost a week digging through 300-year-old cheap shit. Everyone else on site thought that was quite amusing. Don't know if it's already been said, but Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old cousin when he was very much older than her. For more Poe facts, I highly recommend Edgar Allan Poe. The Fever Called Living by Paul Collins. It goes into his marriage to Virginia pretty deeply, as well as the deep depression he went into when she died at 24. During the Age of Sail, anytime a large ship would come into port, the men often wouldn't be allowed shore leave for a few days. So you would see small boats packed with prostitutes heading out to the ship at mooring. Larger ships of the line would have over 500 men aboard, so there could definitely be a couple hundred ladies brought aboard behind the captain's back. And with virtually no privacy aboard, you would have spaces in the ship with hundreds of couples going at it at once. There were definitely a lot of captains that didn't allow any women aboard, so the sailors on those ships would just have to wait until they could go ashore. Also a reason why piracy was, in the long term, an unsustainable economy. Because most of the crew would blow their entire take of a prize with women, and to a lesser extent booze, the next time they went ashore. Did wonders for the economy of Kingston though. I love pirates, but goddamn they had no long-term plan. Edit. Till not to comment on Reddit while drunk. Thanks guys, you're all actually pretty funny, and I'll upvote every goddamn one of you. I doubt most guys in that line of work back then didn't expect to make it to old age anyways. Might as well live it up while your heart's still beating. Look at Blackbeard. The most famous pirate of all time was only a pirate for 2 years and was dead by 38. Catherine the Great had a parlor room filled with explicit, erotic furniture she commissioned personally. We are talking blowjobs carved into chairs, an end table where giant dicks torrential cumshots were holding up a marble countertop, a woman getting eaten out by a demon on a throne. Home General had taste. She was German, and yet she ruled Russia. Do you know who her furniture guy was? I'd like to commission one of these pieces please. Newton was so dedicated to his work and abhorred fun so much that many people believe he died a virgin at 87 years old. And by work I don't mean revolutionizing physics and inventing calculus, I mean alchemy. His main focus was turning lead into gold and making the philosopher's stone. I think Newton is a very good example of someone in history who probably had autism before autism had the name. Don't historians think that the concept of changeling came about to explain children who had autism and other similar conditions? Ben Franklin was a super sex freak and loved to tell younger dudes to have sex with old women. Ben Franklin was a playboy. He was the US ambassador to France and slept with the daughters of many French nobles. And when he arrived his clothing would influence French fashion. Dude also enjoyed taking air baths, which meant that, while he was in France, he would just sit naked in front of an open window in his living room while he did his morning paperwork. Pretty sure that one person in my yoga class bathes by waving crystals around their body. In the 12th century, a philosopher named Peter Abelard challenged the church teaching on sexual morality, pointing out that no ceremony of man could make an inherently immoral act moral. The act would have to be already generally moral. Therefore sex before marriage really couldn't be considered a mortal sin. He fell in love with the wrong woman and had his nuts cut off. This made him angry and sad. He then wrote a book. He had a kid with that woman, the bishop's niece, and she loved him the rest of her life. They are buried together in Paris. Not necessarily NSFW, but pirates were one of the first people to have a healthcare plan of sorts. If you lost an appendage, there was a predetermined pay for everything that was lost or maimed. Also, there was a pretty large number of female pirates. For a time, when women had little to no value in the workplace, they more or less had equal treatment and pay to other pirates. The loss of a limb payment is depicted in the Errol Flynn movie, Captain Blood. The one-legged pirate receiving the GB Gold is played by my grandfather. His leg was machine gunned off on the 11th of November 1918. Moved the family to Hollywood and was an extra for many years. And Frank's diary talked a lot about masturbation, but most of it was edited out. Here is an excerpt of such a part of the diary. Until I was 11 or 12, I didn't realize there was a second set of labia on the inside, since you couldn't see them. What's even funnier is that I thought urine came out of the clitoris when you're standing up. All you see from the front is hair. Between your legs there are two soft, cushiona things, also covered with hair, which press together when you're standing, so you can't see what's inside. They separate when you sit down, and they are very red and quite fleshy on the inside. In the upper part, between the outer labia, there's a fold of skin that, on second thought, looks like a kind of blister. That's the clitoris. This is a better description of female anatomy than I've ever seen in a textbook. Author actually has seen female anatomy.